All right. Hi everyone. Yep. Today we gonna continue on trying to hack on omnisharp, and meanwhile, while we're doing that, trying to improve .NET-bsp server and also the BSP plugin for NeoVim. So let's open the projects. I will show you the current problem that I have. And that's actually good that we try to compile omnisharp, because we have a couple of issues there, which I didn't encounter on my project till yet. So I guess in the wild we would hit the same problems. So resolving them here should stabilize our .NET-bsp. Let's first, actually we can look directly in the console. The issue that I have, I get an error here. And this is because of an invalid URI. And I was looking into it a little bit. And it seems that I pass a relative URI path. And it seems that it's how I'm doing that is not supported by the standard. So I guess I have to change that. And for that I was looking into how Bloop is doing that. This is basically the standard, but pretty much to read. We need to find relative for relative reference. Actually, we need file key. I'm just not sure. If we look here into the spec for build target sources, this is actually the request where you get all the files related to the project in this response here. And there you have source items and you have this object here. So you have one, or you have multiple possible routes. The root directories from where source files should be relativized. So like this. And then you have all the source items. And what is not really clear to me if this URI is absolute or relative. either a text document or a directory. A directory entry must end with /, and the directory entry implies that every nested text document within the directory belongs to this source item. But nothing about the URI itself. But my first assumption was that I do provide here relative paths. But I guess that's wrong. Because when I looked here into bloop, I don't know how to call that. Seems that they are absolute. Wait, where was that? Guess this is here. So we have here absolute path, URI, if path doesn't exist and its name doesn't look like a file, assume it's a directory and it's passed. But this one is, can we jump to it somehow from here? I'm not a Scala expert, so don't actually know how to find the implementation for that. That's not the correct one. bsp. So at the top somewhere here. Scala URI bsp. I have to read that. Is this a reference to something external? Come on. Paste in there or why? Okay. Somehow completely broken. Cannot type anything. Can I type here? Yes. This is the Zen browser. And there I can type. Copy. Can I do paste? Ah, now it works. Okay. No. Let's see. Jump to the source from here. BSP for J. Oh, is this? Open this up. Yeah, okay. Just want to find the source of this one. Hi, Chandra Mauli. How are you? So where to find this one? Yeah, I'm also fine, thanks. Just diving into Scala stuff to understand how they implement build server protocol. Because I have one issue with file paths, and yeah, just wanted to check how they implemented it, because they have like this is the feature completest implementation, kind of reference implementation, so you have to check there if you want to know how to do stuff. Let's go, yeah. Let's do this. Did you wrote some Scala before? So it seems that it should be here somewhere. Nice. Did you manage the LSP? Which LSP did you try to fix? Also, BSP, it's build server protocol. It's kind of like the same as LSP, but for build tools. Yeah. So BSP. How is the import stuff is done in Scala? Scala import. Okay, we have here package users. class user, main Scala users. Let's under Scala users. So like that. Okay, but now how to find out if this is an external reference? So else it would be somewhere. Let me go back up here. We have prefer source, build press source main, CLI source main. This would Scala CLI, right? Search for this one. Cannot be found there. So we have Scala BSP URI. Has to be here in the main somewhere. There's blob CLI. Then it seems like it's an external source. Where are external packages defined in Scala? Scala import external dependencies. Autolet Scala dependencies. Manually. Build SBT. Using external library Scala code. This should be it, right? Check out docs dependencies. Page not found. Nice. What wine cargo? Scala using lib. Does this depend on your build tool? Nope. Comments do help, but docs are very much better in long run. Yeah, it seems like it, yeah. Jar depends between projects not working. Scala project file. They have something like projects for like loop. Let's go back here. Try find out. where it's defined. Search again. So let's go back here to Scala Plop. SBT. So it seems like this is not part of this project, but an external dependency. But where to find where it's coming from? Scala format, Scala fix. SBT options. GVM options. It basically can do two things. Yeah, LSP is for the language support, and BSP is for the build tooling. So let's say what would be a good example? Are you familiar with Java development? Like in Java, there are different build tools. Like I'm not a pro Java developer or something, but I know there is Gradle, and what was the other one? Gradle versus the other build tool, Maven. So this are like different toolings to basically do the same. And what you could do if you have like Java language support, right? Your LSP need to know how to build the project, how to restore the dependencies and stuff. And depending on which tool you would use, your language server need to understand how to handle compiling the project with Gradle and with Maven. And what BSP does is kind of providing an abstract API where you could just say that you want to build the project from the LSP point of view, and you don't care if this is Gradle or Maven behind the scenes. So you just have you speak just the BSP protocol, or build server protocol to the build tool, and the build tool does what you want at that point. So you have like an implementation for every build tool, and your language server just needs to implement this build server protocol to be able to support different build tools. This is basically the idea. And what it can does for us, it can do the same also for the editor, so that the editor does not need to support every build tool like .NET, like Gradle, Maven, Go, and stuff like that. You could just implement for each of the build tools the build server protocol, and then your editor just needs to understand this protocol. So the same way it needs only understand the LSP to support different languages, your editor would need to talk build server protocol to understand different build tools. So you could then just say compile, run tests, clean up your workspace, and behind the scenes the build server would do that. So let's close this. Hi, Victor. Yeah, it helps you easier support different build tools. So maybe I can show you an example. Ganz gut, Victor. Selbst. So currently I'm working to support or like to improve build server for .NET, but the basic idea would be here I have this omnisharp Roslyn project, right? I'm open up nvim, and usually if you need to build .NET, you need to do this with CLI .NET build. All right, and it does the build. So when the editor understands the build server protocol, you could just say here, let me show you, bsp compile, and then you select the target. What do you want to compile? So in my case, I want to compile the whole solution. So I just select the solution here and hit enter. And you see now that it does stuff behind the scenes. So it restores all the dependencies, which .NET build would also do. So this is basically the same. What it does, but I don't need to know the exact command. So this is something that the build server knows. So I just need to send a request to the build server that is currently running for this project, and say I want to compile this project, and the build server knows how to do that. And what it gives you back is just a list of errors already in a structure that is like build tool independent. So like an LSP server also does. So you have just structured diagnostics output, which you could put, let's say, in a quick list or do other stuff with that. But you can go over all errors and do stuff with it. I actually use the diagnostic to fill the quick fix list, so I can jump between the errors. So these are the build errors here, and then I could jump like to the test manager file, like to this location where the build failed for this file, and can fix it. So it's basically easier if you have compile time errors, and you can just jump between them and fix them. The good thing about that is if you're working like with multiple languages, you don't have to remember all the different CLI commands to compile and to like clean up the workspace, and you don't need to remember how the arrow format is, because this is basically defined by the build server protocol standard, and you can just jump over the errors. Yeah, this is like a really basic introduction. Maybe also one other thing here, maybe it's easier to show here also. Like omnisharp has support for different build tools. One of them is MS Build. This is like the default Microsoft build tooling. This is used for building F#, C#, and a bunch of other languages. And then you have also the support here for Cake, which is also very famous build tool for .NET. And I think they had a third one. I think it was Mono, which kind of is MS Build related, but not quite the same. So, and basically if Cake, MS Build, and like say Mono would have build server protocol implemented, omnisharp would not need to know all of them. It would just need to understand the build server protocol, and it could then speak to each of this servers, or like the implementations of build server protocol, and compile the source code for them with them. And it would be just easier for omnisharp also. That's what I'm trying to do here, actually, to introduce build server protocol implementation here. And let's see, I'm not sure if this even would be accepted upstream, but it's just for me. Just want to try it out and see how it would work. One question, can we code without autocomplete or without LSP and just remembering the things like we remembered words and their meaning from grammar, as LSP is not that much old? Yeah, we could, for sure. And it would, like some of developers just do that. They just opt out from LSPs, and they say they want to write the code completely on their own. So you don't have to use LSP. I think just for me, actually, it's kind of easier. I don't need to remember everything. But there are people who just want that also. And if you don't use LSPs, you force yourself to remember all the functions and stuff, which is also a benefit. Yeah. So I actually don't know how to even find that. And where's the source code for that? Is this here? Search for it here. There we go. This seems like the right place here. Oh, this is in test kit, so maybe we search here for the files. Like this. Yeah. This is it. So here we should be able to find implementation for URI. This is the only valid way to create a URI. Okay. So, okay, they also used Java implementation of the URI. Then this should be fine, because I guess .NET follows also the URI standard, and when I get errors there, then it seems like I'm doing it wrong. So let's find the place where I did the change here. Get full path. So we have this, like path combine, and we combine these two paths. So what I'm trying to do is I currently have here an issue, error here. This is how I try to create a URI with this document in there. So this path is like starting with a dot, so relative path, and you cannot create a path like that. At least, yeah, it does not work for me here. So what we have to do is provide the full path, and this I would need to find the root directory. This is actually this one. And then this should be working just fine if I put it in there. So, and if this is null, then we provide like the root. What did you found in the description? So let's see how this works. Let's compile this. Actually, we do the clean stuff. There is no publish command in build server protocol, which is a pity. Okay, let's restart this one. So this seems to work, so we have no issues here anymore. It could be that I have to adopt some things in the bsp.nvim. There is a YouTube glitch which deletes the comments I was talking about your GitHub account. Oh yeah, it's in the description. On my channel. So now it looks pretty good. Let's log debug. Let's rebuild it. Log debug. Log information, warning, error, exception. And it's information, I guess. Fixing and debugging things on your own feels boring and challenging. Am I right? Depends. Like fixing or debugging stuff sometimes feels fun because it is kind of a problem solving. So puzzling, if you like puzzling and you have like a problem, you're just trying to fix it is, yeah, like puzzling actually. It's kind of just frustrating if it takes long, and sometimes it takes hours to debug stuff, and especially hard it is if you're debugging for hours and hours and at the end you solve it and this was just a small thing that you just overlooked a couple of times, which happens quite a lot actually. And yeah, most of the time it's the small things that you just overlook because they are maybe too small, not that obvious. Sometimes not obvious because you lack of knowledge about stuff. And you need to like that. It's not for everyone. Like many people say, like standing for a computer and just trying to solve some bugs, it's boring. Yeah, also sometimes small things make it complex, that's right. And sometimes we are trying to solve simple problems with really complex solutions. And this is also something which makes like programming a craft, to try to solve a problem with a simple solution. So we are here, let's rebuild. But I plan different stuff also on the channel. So I'm not sure if you're interested, but I have a couple of hardware projects that I want to do. One of them is building my custom dactyl maniform keyboard. This one. I showed it in a couple of streams already. Yeah, I prepared all the stuff. Just need to finish that. Need soldering the PCBs and the wires and stuff, and program the firmware for that. Or actually, like the firmware is there. I just need to configure it and flash it. I do have experience in things in mathematics, physics, and chemistry when solving small problems takes too much time and efforts. Okay, interesting. What are you doing actually on your free time if you have like mathematics, physics, and chemistry experience? Do you mean from school or from work or? just from your hobby. So what do we have here? Warnings, 2 warnings, this is fine. Let's actually try to build a solution. We have a compilation error, which is fine. And we have other errors here. Like this one is especially annoying because it does not appear when I'm trying to do the build with the CLI. I didn't figure it out where it comes from actually. It doesn't come either if I compile directly a project. So if I do like compile the standard IO CS project, then it also seems not to appear. And I just got the errors that I also get when I do the CLI build. I'm in my intermediate studies, currently in 12th standard. Right now, my everyday is like the weekend. You mean every day is a weekend for you? Or did I misunderstood that? Doesn't mean the 12th standard. So, yeah, solving these errors is actually hard, I guess, because this is the issue is that I don't compile with the latest SDK. If I would compile it with the SDK 10, then it would not appear, I guess. First, let's maybe just fix this. So you don't need this thing here. Alright, kind as absolute. Was this absolute before? Let me just check. So if I delete this, okay, yeah, that's fine. We keep it like that. Just rebuild again to make sure it does not break stuff. Revert this change. So let's restart. I mean, I don't have particular things to do and I'm usually free. Okay. And you said you wanna like learn programming from ground up, right? Did you start it with assembly? Or I think it was C, right? Where you're trying to look into. So BSP console. So looks still good. Nice. Then let's explicit settings for this one is already fixed and merged. Now let's pop up the latest changes. I think we create here a new feature. Should we call that? All right, this basically it is a fix. So fix build target sources paths. Like this, right? And we replace everything. So fix build target sources paths in what's this called? Sources item. Right now I will finish my 12th class study. After that I give my half time on programming and half time on revisions of my studies before starting college. Okay, sounds interesting. I would be interested in which projects you will tackle if you're when you're starting program stuff. So let's remove this, this also. So open omnisharp. No, I think I can close this too. Do we have here? That's different stuff. Okay, so now let's try to actually fix the errors. Maybe we can still go or compile without SDK 10. So let's see. Yeah, you can always join my stream and ask stuff. I would be glad to help if I can. So let's jump to here. The CS project file here. What do we have? Language target condition target framework 6 include object model. UVS test .NET test support. The target framework is .NET 6. Build props. I have .NET 9, so if we switch it to 9 and rebuild. And also let's search this. Oops. So we have 34 errors now. So it's still here. I think I don't need this part actually. Let's just edit completely. 34 we had. Right now I was reading all the codes which are shown on screen, but was able to understand only a small portion or even tiny. Yeah, I mean, most of the stuff is depending on the domain. So whenever I open up like a project, even if it's written in a language that I understand actually, sometimes it's still hard to understand what the code is doing because you have often understand the domain in which you're programming. So what are you trying to solve? What is the code is all about and stuff like that. If, especially if the code base is big. You just need time to dive in and understand. So don't worry if you don't get everything. And also sometimes I think it's harder to understand if you don't do it yourself. So if you're just watching someone coding, it's a different thing than when you would try to solve it yourself. At least this is for me like that. So I need to do it myself to really understand stuff, to really grasp it. This one seems really maybe it's just old. Let me see. find packages props. And then let's find the test framework stuff. Test package version. Test package version. Test platform. Let's find out where this, oh, actually this one. Which version do we have currently? 18. I was here at 1714. Don't use virtual lines, any particular reason, or is it not practical? What do you mean by virtual lines? I'm not sure. Virtual lines. Oh, I know what you mean now. You mean here on this side, so they are relative. I think it's, as for me, this is kind of confusing. I know many people use it to jump around, but I'm not used to it actually. And what I rather would like to do is to train my muscle memory to do the stuff like this hop. I have this hop plugin. What you can do with it is just jump to a location. So let's see. Let's say you want to jump here to the 0 from where you are currently. So if you would have relative numbers, you would just kind of jump that many lines to the bottom, right? And then search for the 0. But with the hop plugin, you can just say you want to go to one place like below my cursor, and then you need to type one character. So I typed the 0 and it replaces it with some other character which is only available like once. So if I put the K, I jump directly to the 0. This is, in my opinion, more efficient than jumping lines and then jumping to the character where you want to jump to. So this is what I want my muscle memory to remember. I'm not always kind of focus on that. So I'm often doing this, like just spamming J&K. Not the best thing, but didn't find the time to actually really enforce it. There are plugins that can enforce it so you don't spam always J&K and stuff. But yeah, didn't get the time to set them up and stuff. And so the same you can do also to go up. So if you want to jump to, let's say, to this P here at the top, you can just jump other way around. So you see here the bottom, I have like hop active, and it waits for me to hit one character, I do the big P, and then it shows I need to push the E, and then it jumps right to the P at the top. So this is a pretty handy plugin, and I like the idea of it. And you can also configure it that it works for the whole window, so not only for this specific buffer here. And one other tip that I saw someone else doing, actually, I think also on a stream, if you want to jump to a really high line number, like 300 or something, sometimes it's hard to do, like typing 300 and then the big G. You can also do just typing here 300 and it would do the same. So if, let's say, we want to jump to 110, right? So you type 110 here. That way, if you are not a safe typer or something, you see if you type it wrongly, you can correct it and say, okay, I want it to go to 111 and just hit enter. So it's just actually one character more to type for this command. So, but sometimes it's handy. Or especially if you copied line number from anywhere, you just know a line number, then you can do like also just paste it in here and then hit enter and you jump right to the line number. Let's see, actually, .NET test project test. So I didn't modify this one. Need just to check. Okay. If I changed some versions on the dependencies, and it does not look like it. Let's search again for target framework. Maybe I forgot somewhere to change that I'm currently trying to build it with .NET 9 and not .NET 6. Oh, this is, there is a condition. So let's put it to .NET 9. Target framework .NET 9. So save this and rebuild the solution. Yes, I also do that to jump fastly, like to jump at 100, doing 100 and then enter. This is also a fast method to jump multiple lines. Yeah, true. So what's actually with this namespace? Name logging does not exist in Microsoft Visual Studio Test Platform object model. How could that be? I think I could also change this back. I did this changes back then to when I had issues with building the project, but I found the issue, but didn't revert the changes. So rebuild. Yeah. Normally, thank you for joining. Good night, and see you in the next one. See you. Bye bye. Test case could not be found. Check volume. This old or something? Yes, test manager. What is this used for even? Is this for supporting tests? If this is for only supporting tests, then I guess I could just remove this for now. Because the build server provides that already. But this would mean this is for the new test platform, right? Microsoft Test Platform. I think this is the newest platform. Let's see, where's the source code? Is test. Platform SDK. 3 years ago. Search for this one. What if we just update it to the latest version? 18. We had the latest version of that is 18, right? Here. And which frameworks does this support? .NET Core, .NET 9, and so on. Oh, this platform translation layer is 18. An object model. So also should be supported everywhere. 8 and so on. And version is 18 also. 17.14.1. Let's go to the package props file. And go here. 14.1. remove the previous stuff. This was the one for 8 months. Just try to rebuild it. Logging is missing. Communication utilities is there, but logging is missing. Why? Was this removed or something? We were here, right? Test platform, object model, logging. Still there. Don't know why this is showing like that. Oh, but this is a different packages drop. Okay. And we try to go to 18 here. 0, 0. Let's rebuild. So when it's through, then we restart the LSP server. The LSP server. So it's clean, it's rebuilt. So only 2 person names type or namespace test message level cannot be found. Test message level. Test message level. It's there. Oops. It doesn't start LSP server. Doesn't suggest anything here. So, but now it should work. It also worked previously. Maybe I should had don't know. I must build clean. You get restored. Gets token. Build up parse references. We start the BSP server maybe. He's confused somehow. The language server could import this namespace, so kind of understands that this class here is in that namespace. Wondering what build server gives here. That cancels synchronously blocks. Okay, it's fine by me. Okay, really strange. And I get everywhere this parse exception for reasons. So if we open this up here and just replace the add stuff with, say, that we get a stack trace, which is easy to read, and we do execute work item get the lazy get value graph build your past project. Microsoft build graph. Compile handler. Files. When I try to load that, it's an error past project. Get a topology sorted collection of all project nodes in the graph. Reference projects appear before referencing projects. This should, but this one should be inverted somehow. Let's get unordered collection. This is one is get a topology sorted collection of all project nodes in the graph. Get the target list to be executed for every project in the graph. Given a particular target list for the entry project. Graph roots. Referenced project appear before the referencing project, which is kinda right. Get the topology sorted collection of all project nodes in the graph, referenced project IP before referencing. Just wondering if there's maybe a better way to do this. Project references, referencing projects. Get a list of graph nodes for projects that have a project reference for this project. A list of graph nodes for projects that have a project reference for this project. So these are actually then kind of parent projects. Interested in how MS Build is doing that. Let's maybe just look MS Build. Do they use it anywhere? Graph build request data. Graph to build. Project graph node. Build project graph. Build manager. Build request data project graph. Build graph. Okay, this seems interesting. Build manager. Project cache tests. This looks also interesting. Graph builder, also interesting. Project cache. Begin build async may be called with or without the project graph, depending on this build. Has one to provide. When it is not provided, hints about the graph entry points are provided with which plugin may decide to construct the project graph itself if desired. Project cache. It seems pretty new. Execute graph build scheduler. Project graph entry points. Double collection. Project instance. Then we have a project graph. Then we have this project cache. Get targets list. Submission build request data target names. Targets list. Lists. Let's see if we have the same here somewhere. Graph. Get target lists. String. Get the target list to be executed for every project in the graph. Given a particular target list for the entry projects. For the entry project. Get the target list to be executed for every project in the graph, given a particular target list for the entry project. So do we have there target names? Do not remove the below proxy properties. They are required to make the OM forward compatible. Code built against this OM should run against binaries with the previous version of OM. Build manager. What do they mean with targets here? Is this actually something like restore and build? Are this the targets, MS build targets? Or actual CS project files? Determine if the user specified target restore, which means we should only execute a restore in the fancy way restore is executed. Execute restore below changes the current working directory and does not change back. Therefore, if we try to create a request after the restore call, we end up with incorrectly normalized paths to the project. To avoid that, we are preparing the request before the first build restore request. We couldn't find a straightforward way to make the restore invocation clean up after itself, so we should this ugly but less risky approach. Okay. The default project state is thrown out of the build. The provide project state after build flag add the project state after build to the build result passed back and at the end of the build. This can then be used to find the value of properties, items, etc. after build is complete. Is this new, the 6 make? Days ago. Use IO operation from Microsoft IO Redist, which is generally higher performance, and also work around the build issue unnecessary on .NET 6 Plus because the performance improvements are in box there. Get the target list to be executed for every project in the graph, given a particular target list for every entry project. What does this mean? Just get the project graph node we already have here. Project interpretation. Outer build, project inner build. Non-multi-targeting. Graph entry point. Project collection. Project instance factory. Project interpretation. Degree of parallelism. Project builder solution item reference. So I guess this can be also optimized. It seems that I'm not using the graph correctly. At least this is what I suspect why I get these strange errors there. This one. Just see if maybe someone else had the same issues here. Keep path and invalid project exceptions. Still not closed. Static graph. Building a graph. Project references should be built before the projects that reference them, as opposed to the existing MS Build scheduler, which builds project just in time. For example, if project A depends on project B, then project B should build first, then project A. Existing MS Build scheduling would start building project A, reach an MS Build task for project B, yield project A, build project B, then resume project A once unblocked. Building in this way should make better use of parallelism as well, as all CPU cores can be saturated immediately rather than waiting for project to get to the phase in their execution where they build their project references. More subtle, less execution state needs to be held in memory at any given time, as there are no paused builds waiting to be unblocked. Knowing the shape of the graph may be able to better inform the scheduler to prevent scheduling projects that could run in parallel onto the same node. Note that graph cycles are disallowed even if they are using disconnected targets. This is breaking change, as today you can have two projects where each project depends on a target from the other project, but that target doesn't depend on the default target or anything in its target graph. MS Build graph. MS Build will create a static graph for the entry point project and build it in topological order with specified targets. Targets to call on each node are inferred via the rules in this section. Inferring which targets to run for project within the graph. In the classic MS Build, the execution of targets, the referencing project chooses which target to call on the reference projects and may call into a project multiple times with different target lists and global properties. Example, project reference protocol. This is a top-down traversal of dependencies. These calls are made via the MS Build task. In building a graph, projects are built before the project that referenced them. This is a bottom-up traversal. Therefore, the graph needs to determine the list of targets to execute on the specific project before building the referencing project that reference B. Static graph contains the structural information on which reference projects the referencing project depends on, but it does not contain information on what depends means. At build time depends means that the referencing evaluated projects will call a subset of reference evaluations with some targets. Subset because the static graph is an inferred graph. Therefore, there are ambiguities during graph construction, and thus it needs to be conservative and represent a subset of a runtime graph. The runtime graph is the actual graph that gets executed during a real build. We cannot know the runtime graph because that would require us to analyze MS Build XML code inside of targets in order to find MS Build task invocations. This means doing heavy program analysis like symbolic execution. That would make things very complicated, slow, and would probably introduce even more ambiguities. So a larger subset conservative graph. So we kept it simple and only looked at evaluation time as built XML code. MS built XML code outside of target elements. To summarize, the static graph does not have insights into the MS build task call sites. It does not know call site specific information such as the target foo bar or properties foo ghost bar. MS build task attributes. Since the graph does not have access to MS build task call sites, it does not know what targets will get called for a given graph edge. To infer target information, we use a flow analysis to propagate target information down the graph. The flow analysis uses the project reference target protocol described further down to infer how one incoming target on a graph node, e.g. build, generates multiple outgoing targets to its referenced nodes. Target get target frameworks, Git native, manifest, MS build, SDKs must explicitly describe the project to project calling pattern via the project reference targets protocol in such a way that a graph-based build can correctly infer the entry targets for a graph node. Okay, but how to start a graph build? Public API. This is a proposal for that public API for project graph may look like this. Project file creates a graph starting at given project file. Let's graph starting at the given project files. Global properties. All various constructor overloads of which takes a project collection. Nodes for the provided entry points. Project graph node. No public creation. The evaluate project graph node. Nodes for the provided entry points. Building a project in isolated means enforcing the constraints that whatever a graph node is built, all the target calls that it does on its reference do not execute because their results are already available. This means that any built result object for project references must be pre-computed and somehow provided as input to the referencing project. I think I need to read this. An isolated graph build. When building a graph in isolated mode, the graph is used to traverse and build the projects in the right order, but each individual project is built in isolation. The build result cache will just be in memory exactly as it is today, but on cache miss it will error. This enforces that both the graph and target mappings are complete and correct. Furthermore, running in this mode enforces that each project global properties pair is executed only once and must execute all target needed by all projects which reference that node. This gives it a concrete start and end time, which leads to some potential performance optimizations like garbage collection and collecting all project state except the build results once it's finished building. This can greatly reduce the memory overhead for large builds. So okay, I see I use something pretty new. So this graph build is something new. So what if I do it a little bit different here? Instead of this, I can say target list and say restore like this. Then I would get project graph node, project graph node, I think this could be like this. Somehow I can dereference, right? What was this? Dotnet dereference. Dereview. How is this called? Dotnet key value. I forgot how it's called. To this key value. This is dereference. This is dereference, not sure. Net access results. Like this. Let's call how this is called. Preceding sample shows to define a tuple type. Optional the field names. You can define methods in a tuple type, but you can use the method provided by. This following example shows. Initialization expression, or in the definition of a tuple type as the following example shows. Deconstruction. This is deconstruction. dotnet return type deconstruct. So let's try this. Nice. So this. What is this actually? This is an immutable list of what do we get here? Immutable list of strings. Get the target list to be executed for every project in the graph. Given a particular target list for the entry project. This method uses the project reference targets items to determine the target to run per node. The result can then be used to start building each project individually, assuming a given project is built after its references. A dictionary containing the target list for each node. If a node's target list is empty, then no targets were inferred for that node, and it should get skipped during a graph-based build. Okay, so if call this targets, if targets count 0, say continue, right? So let's try this out. Okay, different versions. could not be resolved. This is only a warning. Seems like it. Have been unified. Okay, let's just think of this as it should be fine. Restart. Okay, this is crazy. So for the restart, it's looking good. So maybe we just do the same thing here, but for the build. Build, right. This is project. It's also, oops, this is project targets. Let's name this project build node. Graph, project graph node. Let's call it the same graph node. So let's rebuild. So okay, this was not much better. And the issue wasn't gone, so didn't solve the issue. Wait, cancel a second. Entry endpoint handlers. Task from Resite. How can I disable this? Okay. Does this work like that? I don't think so. Currently this solved that. I have still data issues with this restore task X. Restore using MS build static graph evaluation. So I think it's enough for today. I definitely need to read this from top to bottom to understand that. So same manager. And does that. Trades instance debug engine is false. Return my next available debug file paths. Graph to dot. Okay, this is only debugging. Non-graph builds verify this in request builder, but for graph builds we need to ambiguate between entry nodes and other nodes in the graph. Since only entry nodes should error, just do the verification explicitly before the build even starts. Project error utilities verify from invalid project. Entry point node project instance targets count. Entry point instance project location or target specific. Targets per node. Execution only gets set when the graph submission gets completed with an exception in on-thread exception. It should not happen during graph builds. Overall submission is complete, so report it as complete. Locked nodes, finished nodes, building nodes. The cache plugin is present, execute submission. Yeah, block nodes, unblocked nodes, build request data. Take onto the existing submission instead of pending a whole new submission for every node. Among other things, this makes build parameters detailed summary produces summary for each node, which is not desirable. We basically want to submit all requests to the schedule all at once and describe dependencies by requests being blocked by other requests. However, today we schedule only keeps track of MS-build nodes being blocked by other MS-build nodes, and MS-build nodes haven't been assigned into the graph nodes yet. Get next submission ID. Reset. Resolve configuration. And reset. Creates a new build manager with an arbitrary distinct name. Normally there is only one build manager in a process, and it is the default build manager. Access it with build manager, default build manager. Project started, event handler, on project finished. Do we have a logger here? Build component factory collection, register default factories, initialize. Deferred build message. Begin build. Let's search for a logger. Forwarding logger record. Shares logging service. VS builds discard many MS build events, so attach a bin logger to capture them all. Telemetry consuming. The request failed because we caught an exception from the loggers. We can assume we will receive no more logging messages. log node configuration, get node configuration, logging service, logging service. Logging service. This logging service is used for the build manager and the in-proc node, therefore it should have the first node. Logger build check logger. Create logging service. Private. Logging service, create log. Components factory get logging servers. Retrieve the logging service associated with the particular build. So let's just look this up and then we will finish. Check it. Be also interesting. Build parameters PC collection. PC is project collection. Yes, and then the collection is build parameters. Then the logger could be console logger, minimal. But this could be it. Let request data create project instance. So this could be also. I just need to go entry nodes. Get project nodes representing the entry points. So if we would do that, if we just check what happens then. What I'm thinking of currently is if this internally handles it as it was described in the spec, then if I provide the entry points here and do a build on the entry point project, then it should build the depending projects, the dependencies of this entry point nodes first, and then dependent projects, right? So it's from bottom up. Let's rebuild this complete thing and try again. Should be able to see the messages here in the top differently. If this is the case, I guess. Yeah. This does not resolve this issue at least. So I think I will try out the build manager the next. So write it to do here. Try out build manager and the build manager be available here somewhere. Code action. This something internal only. .NET. See if this is internal or something. Public. Microsoft build execution. Using Microsoft build execution. Build stuff like this, right? Can even do this like that. So for the next time we can try this out. Hopefully this will resolve these errors maybe. Because I have the feeling that this comes from the way I try to build the projects here. This graph. Not sure on that, but yeah, we'll try it out and see. It can be resolved. You use the build manager. And yeah,